Welcome to the Positive Communication Show with your host, Matthew Cooper, where crisis meets communication. Join Matthew on the journey of skills, techniques, and wisdom on empowering your communication and enriching your relationships. Matthew has been a student and practitioner of self-help skills and crisis communications for over 20 years. He owns Positive Control Systems, a crisis communication and intervention business, and teaches these skills to parents, teenagers, and professionals. Here is your host, Matthew Cooper.
Another wonderful episode of the Positive Communication Show. Those that are coming for the first time, thank you. This should be fun. Hope you enjoy this. And for a little bit of background about what I do, I teach crisis communication skills, communication in dealing with crises, both the verbal and the physical aspects of a crisis. And when I'm working with my clients, many of my clients are in the troubled youth industry. I work with the professionals in a variety of private youth facilities that are available. I've also worked with the state of Utah in the past. And in being able to work with these different facilities, we have a variety of different youth which come to the facilities. Some of them are very mild-mannered. Say, for example, a young lady with eating disorders. She's not going to be the most energetic, and she's most likely not going to be as violent as, say, a 6'3" or 4", 300-pound Polynesian young man who has been on a rugby team for the past 5 years. Not saying that the Polynesians are going to be more of an issue. I've just noticed that they are very difficult or challenging to work with, especially when they're on a rampage. And I've worked with the employees from these different facilities, which I've trained to be certified as instructors to work, and a number of them at these facilities are Polynesian. And they have a different way of working with their own children and the children in their community. So it's really just very, very interesting, the different types of youth that I work with, or the facilities I work with handle. I also work with drug and alcohol rehab facilities, as well as high-functioning mental health facilities. I also do work with some adult facilities, rather than just with the troubled youth. So it's a wide spectrum. I've also in the past worked with military, law enforcement, medical practitioners, doctors, etc., and am looking to be able to expand that and be able to help more people understand how important it is to be able to learn how to communicate more effectively. Because honestly, everything we do, all of our behavior is communication. And so by being able to change how we're communicating, we can change the way that people are interacting with us, the way that people treat us, the way that we are treating other people. The challenge is understanding how our communication is working or is not working as effectively. Because since all behavior, everything we do is communication, if we're not communicating our message, the right message, let's put it that way, if the message we're communicating is, say, that we are, well, let's look at politics right now, okay? The scare of the Muslims coming into the country and the issues thereof, okay? Now, is that meaning there's a challenge or a problem? Yeah, I actually believe there is an issue there. Now, it just doesn't mean that all of the Muslims are bad, but I would say just as we have in the past with the United States, with I think it was the Carter administration, and I want to even say Reagan as well. Those countries that support terrorism, we're not going to trade with them, so we're also not going to receive immigrants. Okay, well, that's something that's happened in the past, and it's not about we're afraid of them, it's that we're not going to support these countries who are supporting those who are trying to blow us up. It's kind of like we're not going to allow a rattlesnake which bites people to be held in our hand, okay? Not all rattlesnakes are bad, but if there's a couple of them in the pot, they're going to bite somebody. So with that being the issue, okay, the people who are running scared or are acting crazy, what are they communicating? They're communicating the fear and the craziness. And the other ones that say, oh, we should accept everyone. They're the ones that hold a rattlesnake and expect it not to bite them. So you have everyone that is communicating a different message. Which message is wrong? I'm curious to hear what you say on that. Okay, how about which message is right? Well, the right answer, the proper answer is both of them are wrong and both of them are right. Yes, we have these things called opinions and perspectives. And so if you have a perspective, it doesn't mean it's a fact. It simply means that is your opinion and that is what is right for you. Right for you. It does not have to be right for everyone. And that is something I'm noticing consistently, that people want to force their version of right on everyone. And honestly, that sounds like a totalitarian dictatorship, and I don't care who you are. If you are pushing your belief system on somebody else, whether you claim to be a wonderful God-fearing person or the most spiritual person in the world, so loving and kind, and everyone should follow, you are, in my opinion, just as much of a dictator as any of the other ones in history. Because in refusing to allow people to think and have their own feelings, their own emotions, that in itself is a form of tyranny, which we can't get away from. It's a tyranny of the mind. And I've noticed that with the different groups that are out there in the politics, they have their own specific groups that are just as, shall we say, over the top as any radical religious group, as any other radical group out there that is attempting to force their beliefs on others. In my trainings, I teach that we have what's called a non-judgmental attitude, which means you can look at the actions of the person and be able to confront a person about their actions. However, you don't attack the person themselves. By leaving that person to be themselves and then being able to discuss their actions, talk about, and then if there are consequences for their actions, it's for their actions, not for the person themselves. So how do we, if we want to go back to this idea of the politics and the Muslims coming into the States with the refugees, how do we make sure that we are having a non-judgmental attitude about these people? Well, first off, it's about their actions. Has there been a larger than, shall we say, normal, if we look at the base in the past, say, 30 years in the United States, have there been a larger number of radical Muslims, or even just Muslims alone, because that way we're not calling them radical or conservative, we're just calling them Muslims, have there been a larger number of those individuals in the press, okay, that have done a terrorist act? Have there been a larger number of those in the past 30 years than there were in the prior 30 years? Okay, well, let's even go the past 10 years, or even just the past 5 years, maybe even the past 3 years. Well, if that's the case, then is there a logical, rational case for saying, okay, these people that say that they're not going to attack us and be terrorists, there has to be a way of proving that they're not, right? How? I don't know yet. I'm just simply throwing this out here for you, okay? This is to think logically, not emotionally. That is another thing that I notice a lot in my trainings. When we're dealing with new staff members in these programs, they get very emotional about, I am in charge, I have the right, I am the one who has the knowledge, and I'm in charge, so you have to listen to me. Well, guess what? That client does not have to listen to that employee. They don't. That employee has very, very little authority, and if they think they have a lot of authority, they're wrong. Well, the same idea is that if you say, well, we have to look at all these Muslims as bad, well, that's not appropriate. That's not accurate. What we can do is we say that all of these Muslims, all of these refugees are not bad. No, they're not. They're not. They have not proven that all of them are bad. We have not proven that all of them are terrorists, have we? No, we have not. We have seen a higher incidence of Muslims attacking other people in the United States lately, the past year or so, than we have in the past 30 years. So that would tell me that there is something to what they're saying and that measures should be taken. No, not just pass laws, because laws can be ignored and bypassed by anyone with the will to do so. Okay? They can be easily ignored and bypassed. It's astounding to me. Absolutely astounding how many people think that just because you pass a law that automatically the bad guys are going to follow the law. The criminals will follow the law. They're criminals for a reason, people. They're criminals for a reason. I'm not pointing a finger at any ethnic group. I'm not pointing a finger at any religious group. I'm saying criminals as a group are not known as the most law-abiding of citizens. Because of that, hence the term criminal. All right? And so if we treat them like a criminal, will they continue to act like criminals? Yes. However, they were probably acting like criminals long before we started calling them criminals, which means they're not going to pay attention to laws. They're not going to pay attention to anything that we are trying to do to be able to enforce our belief systems. Is that right or wrong? It's right for us. It's a country, it's a government, it has all these little groups that have their own little interests, and yet when it comes right down to it, we are supposed to be, last time I checked, we're supposed to be Americans, and we're supposed to be watching each other's backs. We are not watching the backs of everybody else. If we are not able to take care of our own. Are we taking care of our own very well? No. That's a different discussion, and that would take a long time to talk about. The communication that's going on is very clear by some groups. Some, it almost sounds like it's a neo-Nazi party that's being able to say, we hate everyone. Well, some of the members may act that way. I don't think that's the way it is in government. Other groups say we have to be able to work with everyone and allow them the benefit of the doubt. Yeah, until they stab you or blow you up. Now, why do I say that? Well, I go back to Israel. Israelis have a lot of issues with that kind of behavior. Proof. Be back in a few moments and chat with you some more.
You're listening to OTR FM, part of the IOM Radio Network.
Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
The name is Bond. James Bond.
No, the name is Joe. The Joe Show. And we are returning back for our 9th season here on OMTimes Radio. So tune in every Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, on OMTimes.com/mobile. You can take us wherever you go.
Yeah!
Do you want to be a better communicator? Do you want to better connect with the important people in your life? Do you want to enrich your relationships? If so, join me, Matthew Cooper, on the Positive Control System Show every Wednesday evening at 11 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time on OMTimes Radio. I'll meet you there.
Have you ever wondered how to change your love paradigm? The secret key is finding a love partnership, not just a regular connection. How do you find these? Through conscious relationships. Ascending Hearts Dating is a dating site for people like you that believes in second chances and a different type of spiritual connection. Try Ascending Hearts for free today at ascendinghearts.com and change your love paradigm. Ascending Hearts, the premier dating community for the spiritually awake.
You're listening to OTR FM, part of the IOM Radio Network.
Want to judge these want to judge unjustly the individuals coming into this country, these refugees, and how poor and unfortunate they are and the problems they're having. Well, yes, they're having problems. I can agree with you there wholeheartedly. Unfortunate? Absolutely. They've oftentimes been roused from their homes, possibly even driven from their homes by the fighting or other issues that are going on over there. Yes, it is a challenge. When I mentioned, though, right before the break that, not every one of these Muslims is going to be nice and happy and gentle. Look at the issues over in Israel, for example. Okay, they've had a lot of terrorist activity over in Israel for quite a long time. And you may say, well, that's just because they are part of the great Satan. They are part of these horrible people who have taken over that land, unjustly, of course, even though the Israelites and the Palestinians have been fighting over it for, I don't know how many thousands of years now. Okay, they've both been fighting. I'm not going to take either one of their sides. I'm simply making a statement about those people. They're fighting. They're going to continue fighting. And if they cannot fight straight up in front, they're going to use terrorist activities because they terrify people. They're effective for what their agenda is. Okay? Does that mean I agree with them? No. I'm simply looking at it in a less emotional state of, oh, it's bad or it's good. No. I'm not going to make a judgment on that. If I'm judging them, saying they're good or bad, then I'm also accepting or rejecting their ideas. I simply look at it for what it is. Two groups fighting, been fighting for thousands of years, and unless someone or something stops them, they're going to keep on fighting. It's almost like it's in their blood or something. I don't know what it is. Probably because after a couple of thousand years, you breed it into the people. And yet it doesn't have to be that way. There's a fantastic book called The Anatomy of Peace, written by the Arbringer Institute. And when we're talking about being able to change what we're doing, being able to accept people, being able to understand the communication that we're giving, because it says all behavior is communication. And since we've been talking about the Israelis and the Palestinians and the problems that go on, that book, The Anatomy of Peace, is beautiful. It talks about a couple of individuals. Let me go back a little bit. It actually is focused around a troubled youth facility that's over in Arizona. One of my facilities, which I work with and been working with them for years, it was modeled after them. They work very closely with the Arbringer Institute. And with that facility, in the book, a dad brings his son, he brings his wife with him, his son to this troubled youth facility. It has to be voluntary, and the youth has a drug addiction problem. As the story unfolds, you find out that the dad blames it all on the son blames it on dad, and dad doesn't want to take any accountability for how he's treated his son. Then the two owners of the facility give quite a nice long talk. Okay, not even a lecture really, but just talking about their experiences. One is Israeli, one is Palestinian. They grew up learning to hate each other. And yet over time and through their own life experiences, they learned not only to accept each other, but to find love and acceptance for the other person, and they become best friends and even became business partners together. What I'm attempting to get to here is to show you that just because we have a perspective, an idea of this is right or this is wrong, that communicates a very hard line to everyone around you. Whether it is right or wrong, it's what is right is wrong for you. However, if you're looking to be able to connect with people and to build your relationship, you're not creating a positive relationship if you're lashing out at everyone and telling them they're wrong. What efforts are you making to accept others? Now, accept does not mean agree with. It does not mean agree with. It simply means you allow them to be who and what they are. Okay? Look at Donald Trump, for example. Do I agree with him? No, not completely no. Do I agree with Bernie Sanders? No, not completely no. Do I agree with President Obama? For the most part, no. Okay? However, do each of them have something that they can say that I may actually agree with? Yeah, I do. And it varies with each person. And yet, because I accept them, I allow them to be who they are. I do not try and change them. I do not judge them. I simply allow them to be who they are. And by doing so, and by not judging them, were I to meet any of them, I have a feeling I could have a good conversation with any of them. I feel that I could have a pleasant conversation simply because I am not judging one of those people right there. I'm accepting them as the individual they are, and then being able to have a conversation, communication with them. And simply because they have their own perspective, it does not mean I have to hate them, revile them, and treat them poorly. I don't have to yell at them, call them a baby killer, call them such an evil, horrible individual, call them all kinds of slurs or racial names. That is not appropriate, and that does not build me as a person. It actually tears me down. And so if I'm wanting to communicate and to have a message that I'm attempting to convey, it will be reflected by the words which I say, the body language I have, and it will also be how I am interpreted. Yes, interpreted. I can have the best message in the world, and yet if somebody interprets it in a way that it is not accurate, according to what I believe, who's responsible for that message now? Me. That's still my message. If they're misinterpreting it, then I need to fix that message and modify or change it until it fits with what I believe it should be. I hear Donald Trump's words being turned around and he's being reviled for this or for that. Oh, okay, yeah, that sounds about right. Some of the things he says, well, they're definitely over the top. Bernie Sanders, oh, he's got some too. Hillary Clinton, absolutely. President Obama, yes. Oh, yes, each one of them. They have words which can be misinterpreted, others which may be deliberate misinterpretation. And others, they simply don't want to hear it, so they ignore what is being said based on their own personal agenda. Part of this communication that I'm talking about is about being able to understand the other person enough and respect them. This is another big key, respect. If you do not respect them enough to attempt to communicate honestly with them, don't even have the conversation. It's simply going to be a bonfire that you're throwing gasoline on. You're just wanting to burn and burn and burn. You're not even willing to listen, to learn, or to come to any sort of agreement between you two. You're not wanting to consolidate into one number of issues. Okay, we agree on these we don't believe with. Oh, and these are the group that we do believe on, and now we can agree to disagree. If you are not even willing to come to that point and to accept that you have different beliefs, then having a conversation is just an excuse for an argument. You just want to fight. That's not going to be very beneficial to building a relationship. If that's not what you want, then you're on the right track. However, if you want to avoid the fight, if you want to build that rapport, that connection with the person, that comes from you being willing to listen. Close your mouth. Yes, close your mouth. And then also open your ears and listen without formulating your next rebuttal. This is crucial in being able to build that relationship. Have you ever seen a married couple or even a dating couple that are arguing back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and they don't seem to be able to resolve anything, even though they love each other? They love each other so much, and yet they're not able to resolve their differences. Is that really a healthy relationship? I don't think so. Now, I agree that you can have a difference of opinion. Oh, absolutely. You should not have to accept and believe everything that your partner tells you as, if you want to call it, gospel truth or a fact of science. No, you shouldn't have to. Everyone is entitled to their own perspective, and that's something that should be encouraged. That's what creates wonderful debates. You know, as I said, debates, not arguments. Have a debate. Oh, this is my perspective, and this is my information. This is how I'm proving this. This is where I get it from. Oh, great. Okay, cool. Rather than having rhetoric and attempting to force the issue or try and turn the person's brain around until, okay, I concede your point. Well, you're not trying to do that. You're simply allowing them to have their own perspective and building on that, trusting the other person is smart enough to think for themselves, allowing them to have that difference of opinion and loving them for it anyway. That's healthy. That's positive. I do not agree with everything my parents have to say about life, religion, death, raising children, etc. I do not. I don't agree with most of my siblings on the same matters. Does that mean that I think anything less of them? Does that mean I don't trust them and love them for the people they are? Of course not. Simply because we disagree does not mean that I do not love them. It simply means that they have differing perspectives and differing opinions than I do. Why is it that when we have politics, all of a sudden it no longer changes them from a person that we can care for into someone that is a monster? They're horrible, evil creatures now. We should burn them. Burn the witch, burn the witch. That's what it seems like we've done. We've gone back to this peasants of the Middle Ages wanting to burn witches, having some individual of the clergy, oh, we should do this, we should burn the witch. She has gone to Inquisition, and we have found her guilty. Okay, that's what's happening, I'm noticing, in politics. These individuals that have some sort of a influence on other people, they're spouting off their opinions, their perspectives, and then they get the mob to back them up, and all of a sudden their opinion becomes truth. Well, how are you going to foster a happier, more productive, peaceful life with those around you when you're treating people like that? When you're part of that? When you are fostering that, and when you are even helping that? When do we listen to the words of Mahatma Gandhi saying that we must become the change we want to see in the world? I dearly love the Dalai Lama. The Dalai Lama, he has wonderful, wonderful statements. I love seeing his statements. People post them on Facebook. I've also read a number of his talks, listened to some of the talks he's given. Even though his English is not flawless, that honestly, it adds to the charm of the man. I love him. I love him to death. He's great, great stuff. What does he profess to believe? Do what makes you happy. Don't hurt anyone. Love others. So many people say, yes, this man is wonderful. We love him. And yet, how do they treat other people themselves? Think about that. Be back in just a few moments right after the break.
This is OTR FM, part of the IOM Radio Network.
Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your show with OMTimes Radio Network.
Hello, I'm Miriam Knight of New Consciousness Review, inviting you to my new show where I interview the rising stars of the conscious awakening. We'll explore the many faces of consciousness in action and intriguing perspectives on life, the universe, and everything in between. Join us each Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern on the Rising Stars Show.
Circle of Hearts Radio is a sanctuary on the airwaves. Join me, Grandmother Elia, in the circle on Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern as I share information to both enlighten and nourish your soul.
The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
You're listening to OTR FM, part of the IOM Radio Network.
When we were talking about, right before the break, Mahatma Gandhi, talking about how we must become the change we wish to see in the world. I really do like that. I really do like that, and I've adopted that for my own self in my own life many, many times, and especially as a single father of 5. Ooh, yes, I have 5 kids. 4 of the 5 are teenagers. Imagine that. Yeah, talk about a handful. Oof. However, I love it. I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't change it at all. My children are fantastic. And anyone who knows me with my children and has been around us, they are surprised at how well-mannered my kids are. Does that mean they're perfect? Absolutely not. It means that they're awesome, though. They have manners. They use them. Of course, they bicker. They fight. They don't always do their chores on time. And yet, they, for the most part, are fantastic. They get along. They communicate. It's so rewarding to hear one of my younger ones, or even my older ones, and when he's counseling one of the younger ones, I know my oldest son, he does this occasionally with his younger siblings, is telling them, you should be doing this, this, and this. You know what you're supposed to do. And that was what I told him to do last week. Oh, that's so nice to hear him saying the same thing back to his siblings. He is hearing it. It's getting through into his mind and his brain, and he's able to say, this is what you should do. He may not always be doing it himself. However, he's recognizing this is something that should be done, and he is able to pass that message on to his siblings. That's something that, we're able to make a mark with the next generation, being able to recognize, hey, I made a mistake here. How can I fix that? Well, it's done by being able to hopefully take responsibility for your actions and then change what you're doing. I mean, if you're doing something that's not working, then change it. Okay? I think it was Albert Einstein said one definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. If you're not changing anything, you're not changing the way you're doing it, changing the way you're thinking, changing the way you're living your life, and you're having the same problems happen, and you complain, why God, why did you do this to me? Why universe? Why economy? It's economy's fault. Finding a reason to blame someone else rather than recognizing, you know what, I screwed up. I didn't do the right thing. I hopefully have a learning lesson from this, and I'll be able to learn from that and not have to keep making the same mistake. I'm going to change now. That's responsible. That's responsible for your actions. And now you can change what you're doing. You can change your life based on recognizing, I can do something about this. Now, I can't control other people. No, absolutely not. What I can control is my own mind, how I see things, how I perceive things, how I feel about things, as well as what I choose to say in return. And that is extremely important. I mean, this reminds me of, I'm finishing up my bachelor's degree right now in organizational management. And one of the things we've recently spoken about in one of my classes, I think this is most recent one I'm taking, a humanities class and a sociology class, speaking about how these young people of today, they want to be able to say anything, post anything on a social media platform like Facebook without any consequences. And their future employers will go there and say, wow, look at this. This person claims to be this nice professional young lady or young man. And you look at their Facebook posts and holy cow, they're a crazy child. We don't want that to be associated with what we're doing, whether they're radical or ultra conservative, or they're doing something which is not fitting with the mindset and the business model of the company. If they're going to be doing something that's going to embarrass the company, that's not cool. Not going to be positive that way. And if they're doing something that can embarrass the company, that can cause the company to lose money. And if that's the case, the person probably will not have a job. So oftentimes employers will say, this person looks like they're too much of a liability. We don't want to hire them. And these young people say, that's not fair. You shouldn't be looking at our stuff online and judging us from that. Well, guess what? That's life, baby. That's life. If you want to make a good first impression, then by golly, you better make a good first impression, and don't expect your second, third, fourth, or fifth impressions that are the same way to change their person's mind in any way, shape, or form. If you are going to speak bad about your employer online, that is a form of slander. Well, I'm just expressing my opinion. I have the freedom of speech. Yes, you do have the freedom of speech, and that employer has the freedom to fire you for it too. Because they're not persecuting you for it. No, they are simply recognizing that you are slandering them, and they are responding, and there's a consequence for your actions. Just the same way that if you're talking bad about a friend, and the friend chooses to relinquish that friendship with you, is that something you can sue them over? You have to be my friend. I don't care that I said something bad about you. You should be my friend still. Our relationship should be stronger than that. Well, if it was that strong, you wouldn't be saying that about me in the first place, would you? Does it make sense? Can you understand what I'm saying? Okay? Is this clear? We have the right to say what we want. What we also have the right to is the consequences for how other people interpret what we say. Remember we're talking about it first? All behavior is communication. And the message that you give, okay, that message, you're responsible for it. Someone misinterprets it, okay. State your case. Explain why they misinterpreted it and that you didn't mean it that way. Okay, great, okay. However, you still said it. And if you said it in such a way that's offensive, you have to have the consequences for that. I see stuff on social media, usually Facebook, all the time about Donald Trump saying something which is offensive. I'm like, wait, he opened his mouth. Of course he's going to say something offensive. That's what he does. Then another group says, well, President Obama, he said something offensive. Or actually didn't say anything offensive because he's afraid to hurt anyone's feelings. Okay, well, guess what? That's what he does too. And there's consequences there. Oh, well, what about Vladimir Putin? President Putin, he says something with this, he's stating this, and that's not right. Guess what? Each one of these individuals is stating what they believe or what they feel is appropriate to get the response they're wanting. They're doing what they think is right. Right or wrong, that's what they think is right for the circumstances. Who are we to blame them and tell them they're not doing it right? We have our own opinions, yes. And yet so many people want to be heard, they also don't realize that their words have consequences too. Rush Limbaugh, for example, my ex-wife aptly called him Thrush Limbaugh because of his vitrolic nature. Okay, he kind of causes the inside of your mouth to swell up and to have these sores. Okay, he really has a way of getting under people's skin. He's really good at it. Really good at it. I think he's quite a bit too outspoken and really ultra conservative to the point where it's very distasteful to so many people, and myself included. Does he have some points? Occasionally. However, it's not something that I want to listen to, and other than hearing it from my dad, listen to it decades ago, I won't listen to the man. Well, that's my perspective. That's my opinion, and I'm entitled to it. I don't think he and I would get along very well. That's okay. We don't have to. I respect him as the human being that he is. It does not mean I have to agree with him. I can accept him for who he is, respect him as a human being, and then go for how he treats me. If he treats me well, I'm sure I could get along with him. Doesn't mean we'd have great conversations all the time. However, we would be able to at least get along, I'm sure. I have other friends that are very outspoken, extremely outspoken in their own personal beliefs, which are in some ways very much opposed to what I believe. And yet, do I rant and rave about them, call them names, and belittle them? No. I simply accept this is your perspective. This is your belief. Okay? I believe everyone is entitled to their own belief. I can respect, I can listen, I can recognize what you're doing. I will look for the good in it. If I don't find very much, then I probably won't look too deep and I won't continue to research it. I won't have anything to do with it. However, I will be keeping an open mind. Over the last weekend, I took all of my children over to the Sikh temple, a local Sikh temple here in the area. The Sikh faith is interesting, and it's quite fascinating because so many of their base precepts are very similar to the base precepts in most religions. Okay, essentially, be nice, be happy, don't kill other people, don't go after them and try and kill them because they believe differently than you. Protect women and children, and really some basic ideas. Like, I like this. I like this. Is pretty cool. They have their prayers, and they'll go through their ceremony. It was interesting. They had quite a little festival this last weekend where they have this every 6 months, I believe, where they have a cloth around this flagpole out in front, and they'll take it down, they'll wash it in milk, then rinse it in water. And the young man that was speaking with this, like, I don't know why they do that, but that's just what they do. Okay, fine. And they put up a new one, and now it's nice and orange. Okay, cool. All right. All along the flagpole. Cool. Then they had these other priests come in, and they were reading from their holy book for 2 whole days. 2 whole days, morning and night. They would switch off. Wow, that's pretty cool. They want to read the whole thing in those 2 days. All right, cool. All right, nice. What else? Okay. The people were so friendly, super friendly. And almost all of them were from the Patanjali area of India, and they spoke Patanjali. So friendly, nice to us. And then we had langar. Langar was where they feed us. And the food, the food was just as good as any Indian restaurant I've been to. Okay? Hands down, just as good. Fantastic food. Was it fancy? No. I was served on a styrofoam plate with a plastic spoon. And I loved it. And I sat down on the floor with everyone else that was there, all of us at the same level, and we shared langar together. There was no judgment. They accepted me for who I was. I did not have to believe in their faith. If I showed interest and I wanted to learn more, they were more than happy to share. However, they were not judging me because I was different. They were not judging me because I was not a member of their faith. They were not judging me because my beard was not as long as theirs, nor was my hair wrapped up in a turban. And that is appealing to me. Does that mean I'm going to join? No. It means I respect them and I accept them. Stick around. We'll talk about it more in just a few moments.
This is OTR FM, part of the IOM Radio Network.
Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
Hi, this is Angela Levesque, host of Entanglement Radio. Join me Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern for inspiring conversations with visionaries in spiritual science and conscious healing. Entanglement Radio, Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern. Transcendent talk for the conscious mind.
Circle of Hearts Radio is a sanctuary on the airwaves. Join me, Grandmother Elia, in the circle on Sunday 2 p.m. Eastern as I share information to both enlighten and nourish your soul.
Have you ever wondered how to change your love paradigm? The secret key is finding a love partnership, not just a regular connection. How do you find these? Through conscious relationships. Ascending Hearts Dating is a dating site for people like you that believes in second chances and a different type of spiritual connection. Try Ascending Hearts for free today at ascendinghearts.com and change your love paradigm. Ascending Hearts, the premier dating community for the spiritually awake.
This is OTR FM, part of the IOM Radio Network.
Experience I had this weekend with my children, able to go to a Sikh temple and be able to share and experience langar with them, which is when they feed people every day. If you go there, they will feed you. No expectation of cost, no expectation of you paying them back, no expectation other than we are here to serve you. Beautiful idea. A beautiful idea. And the food, oh, wonderful. Food, very tasty. I really admire that. My children asked even, Dad, can we go back there every week? I'm thinking, yeah, that's a nice place to go. Maybe not every week, but we can go back. Not to mention we get great Indian food. Is that heartless and horrible of me? No. I admire what they're doing. When they're reading their holy book, they actually have some, you call it music, their own form of music to go with it. They have a finger drum. The guy's quite talented. They're playing, and okay, cool. It's actually almost a meditative feel to it, a Middle Eastern feel. You have the drums going. You have them being able to, speak in Patanjali and reading this book. Okay, that's cool. They're not teaching anything that I can feel would be contrary to what I have taught my children. Is it going to be wholesome and uplifting? Yeah, I can see that. Now, are they going to be telling us if we don't do this, we're going to be going to hell, or that God's wrath will be falling upon us? No. So if I go to somewhere else, if they start telling me that I'm going to go to hell or that God's wrath will fall upon me unless I do exactly what he says, I don't want to be there. That's not how I personally feel about the Creator and how I feel about my own spirituality. So earlier we were speaking about belief, opinion versus fact and truth. You can find out what's true for you. And there are those who believe what is true for them is true for everyone, and everyone should be able to believe the same way they do. And that's their opinion, and they are entitled to it. And I believe that we are all free to choose what we want to believe. Religion, politics, what we're going to eat in the morning, what we're going to wear, how many piercings or not we're going to have in our face, and how many tattoos or not we will have on our body or on our face. All right? You are entitled to what you want to do there. Do not expect others to follow what you're doing unless you're providing an example with which they can relate to and that they choose to follow what you're doing because you're setting a good example for what they choose to believe is right. An example is my martial arts master. Okay, in my martial system, we focus on, surprisingly, a very big part of it is personal development. One of the masters of the school, there's the Grand Master who I've been working with for years and love the man. He's like a father to me. One of the other masters, he's also been working with the Grand Master for many years, and he said that the Grand Master, or the other master, his name is Kyle, Master Kyle was saying that most martial systems do not cover the personal growth aspects about being a better person, encouraging you to change how you're interacting with the community and being able to be a force for change in being able to start with your own family and then expanding out and being able to be that positive influence on the people around you. They talk about it a little bit. However, we go into it quite extensively, including learning how your own personality is, what are your personal ideals, and then how to begin to change, we call these warriorship attributes, in being a true warrior. Not just a warrior of the body, but of the mind, the spirit, and being able to change who we are first without trying to change others. And then through our influence and through our example, we can then inspire others to also make something better with their lives. Does it sound like a religion? In some ways, yes, it does. Why? Because religion and the spirituality that goes with it is something that is intrinsic to the human condition. We want to believe in something. And if you don't believe in something bigger outside of yourself, then aspire to something greater than yourself. So that way you can now become something better by setting those ideals higher than you are now. As you move into those, you can now set them even higher, and then you continue to improve if that is your desire in life. To me, any religion which you choose to follow, any spiritual system, any belief system which you choose to work with, it should inspire you to be better, inspire you to become a better person that emulates those qualities which you have chosen to follow. Whether it's your master, your spiritual master, whether it's going to be a god, whether it's going to be a person which you know and greatly admire, whether it's going to be Mother Teresa, being a saint, or at least she's been, what they call that, brought in, or at least petitioned for. I'm not exactly sure the name for it, so my apologies for not using the proper terminology in this. And yet she has been offered to be a saint. They've at least presented her name that way. And wonderful, wonderful woman. Spent her life showing that she believes in this ideal. Yes, wonderful. And then other people can now take her example and aspire to be more like her, and are inspired by her actions. The actions she took, not just the words she said, but the actions that she took. And I think that one of the things that is most beautiful about the human condition is that we do have those individuals who have gone beyond, above and beyond, the normal call that we would say the call of duty of just doing the basics to survive. And there are those who have truly gone far. We wish to emulate them. And having these heroes in our lives, it's a great thing for us to have those, so we can now learn that, we can be better. We can now emulate their actions. We can now model our own behaviors off of their behaviors and improve ourselves. That's awesome, because then we can be hopefully a hero to somebody else. I know that with my children, that I have become a hero to them. Am I a superhero? I didn't say that. However, I have become that person which they look up to, person who they want to be more like. And that inspires me to try even harder, to work even harder every single day to be a better father, to be a better parent, to be that mentor to them, to be that person who loves them, is willing to take care of them, and do anything that I can to provide them with the life that I want them to have. I encourage them to be strong. I listen to their heartbreaks. I dry their tears when they have the sad times where they've have an injury. I bandage them, wipe off the blood, clean them, bandage them when they've gotten a cut or some other injury. I work to be that person that can have the compassion and the love for them. I am far from perfect. I have so many flaws. It does not stop me from looking and finding other examples in my life that I have seen who inspire me. Now, not everyone inspires me the same. My martial arts master, he inspires me so much in the way he treats people and in his martial abilities. And yet he struggles financially. My own father struggles financially. It doesn't mean that I'm looking at those and saying, oh, I can't have this person as my hero because they're having struggles with finances. No. Instead, I say they are wonderful in these areas. Who else can I now emulate? Who else can I learn from that has also been able to overcome? Other areas, for example, my father, he doesn't have the martial ability my master does. And yet he has a healing ability as a chiropractor. And he's an author. He's just finishing up his 6th book. It's a historical fiction. Really, really great books. It's called Jacob's. Just a second, let me find that is. Jacob's Inheritance. That's the name of the book. Jacob's Inheritance. Jacob's Inheritance. Great series of books. Like 3 or 4 in that series, and now he's writing a series of Pinkerton, who is an old-fashioned detective back in the 1800s. Really great stuff. He has such an imagination, pulling it out, doing research. The man is driven. My master doesn't do that. So I can look at my dad and say, Dad, oh, that's fantastic. I want to be more like you in writing. I want to learn from what you're doing there. So each one of these people that can be our heroes, that we can aspire to be like, this is something that is a human condition, that we should constantly be looking for someone that inspires us. And if we find that they no longer inspire us, find someone else. Research, do something, look for someone. Because how can you inspire someone else if you're not doing something inspiring? I love to learn and study. I love to do certain activities. For example, everything from doing my massage therapy. I follow more of the Oriental the Eastern methods like gua sha, for example, is a Chinese myofascial technique. I like the tui na, which is being able to do massage and then being able to do stretching and such with the body. Also, herbs and such are associated with that, energy work and healing. I also have some of the Western work. I also do energy work. I do Qigong. I do different types of work that helps in those parts of my life. And yet I also like the martial arts. I also like knife throwing. I also like to read books. I like to do blacksmithing and leatherworking. I like carving bones. There are so many things that I like to do. I like to play the flute, the guitar, the Irish whistle. All of these things, there's part of me. And I do them not to impress others. I do them for my own edification, for my own enjoyment. How can we do that? And then when I do that, my children are inspired. Dad, I want to do this too. Oh, surely I'll be happy to help you. My other daughters, they love to draw. They're very good artists. They love to paint. And they inspire people with their works. Hopefully, I may have had a small effort that I have put forward to assist them in their being able to look further into themselves, to find the inspiration within themselves, that they're able to look outside and say, you know what, there are great artists out there. How can I learn from them? How can I too be a great artist? By being able to be the example and being the hero to our own children, we can also be the hero to the next generation. If we can look around us and find out who inspires us, who else is also being touched by their efforts? Not just their words, but their efforts, the things that they do. As I mentioned with the Dalai Lama and what he has done and how he's inspired me. Mahatma Gandhi with his statement of, we must become the change we want to see in the world. If we're not going to be that example, who can we expect to be that? So be your own hero. You can do it. I know you can, and I will see you next week.